everybody, Cindy Daycheck with Queen Bee Creations. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Consider giving us the thumbs up. Every little bit helps. But at least subscribing keeps us coming into your feed and you don't have to go searching for us. And we come at you at least once a week with a new craft, a new idea, something different that you can give a try. And I throw in some of my furniture videos as well. So today, what I'm looking at is I have a couple of these nesting trays. Now I'm going to paint them out different so that they won't be a matched set. But these are so super easy to find, really inexpensively at any of your thrift stores. Mine are still closed, which is a little heartbreaking for me. But these are pretty much an always item. If I see them in a thrift store, I'm gonna pick them up because there's just so many cool crafts that you can do. Now, rather than just painting them out as a set tray, I wanna make them a little bit more interesting. And to do that, because this is our first step in the process, I wanna add some feet. So you see often in all of the decor magazines where people have trays, they've got the feet on them so that they're just a little bit raised, gives them a little bit more interest, and then you create a little vignette on top. So whether or not you've got candlesticks and a little plant, or you know, you've got a picture frame and some beads, I mean, whatever you're into, it just makes it a little bit cuter. So to do this, because I'm all about doing things as inexpensively as possible, I looked around for what I could use as feet. And what I do have is a whack of old wooden knobs that are often on a lot of the antique furniture that I get in, and I take them off and replace them with metal. I don't get rid of them though, because I'm like that. I could use it for other things, and that's what we're gonna do this time. So I'm looking at these four big knobs going in these corners and creating a cool little pair of feet. Set of feet. As we go. So to keep them in place, I want to glue them down first, and then I'm actually going to nail from the top down just to secure it a little bit more. So to start, I need to grab some glue. Okay. So, all we're gonna do first is just attach a little bit of wood glue to this, and I use a variety of them. I mean, this one's just a LePage's Rapid set. I'm not as concerned with the type of glue that I'm using right now because it doesn't have to hold on its own, because I'm going to be attaching some nails. Otherwise, I would use a Gorilla Construction glue, or I like the Tight Bond glues as well. But I'm just looking at these to maybe kind of set up a little bit, set up quickly, so then it's going to hold it in place when I'm trying to do my nailing. And I'm just putting these right in the corners, because then I find that the corner kind of gives it that extra little bit of stability. Also, because I got to try and figure out where these suckers are. The big challenge for me is that because I have a lip, I don't want to nail down through the lip on this. So I'm going to glue these down and then let them set a bit before we do a little bit of measuring to reduce some of our guesstimating. This little tray, I have these little knobs, so this is gonna be a little bit more challenging for me because I have a little tiny space to nail down into. We'll see how I do. So again, I'm just going to stick these down into the corner, and then I am going to allow this to set up a little bit so that they're not going to shift around when I flip the piece over, because I'm going to be nailing from the top, and then we can use a little bit of wood fill. to fill in those holes before we go and do our painting. So at this stage, we're just gonna let these babies sit, let them dry a little bit, and then I'll come back at you when it's time to give the nail gun a try. Always an exciting moment for me because as much as I use it, the pneumatic one still scares me a little bit. It has that big pop sound, so we'll see how that goes. I'll see you as soon as this dries. Okay, these are set up enough for me to be able to do my gun. So one of the things that I did was I took a measure of roughly where the middle sits on here, measured it out here, and I drew little pencil dots because that's so much easier. So that all I'm gonna do is line up my gun, and you could just use a regular hammer if you want. I know I'm getting close to the corner on some of these. So here's the thing. Because I have this, I was okay with putting them close to the corner. If you're gonna be hammering it, put your legs a little bit further in. It'll still be fine, but at least then you can reach them with your hammer. Does that make sense? So you do. That always freaks me out, but it works. And it's awesome, and I like using them. I just have to use them more. I tell you. I don't know what it is. It's kind of like the eye doctor has that puffer thing too, that he measures something in your eye and he shoots air at your eye. Have you guys ever had that? That freaks me out too. And it's just air. This is just air. I mean, I'm okay. Yeah, you're okay, you're okay. All right. Now, the other thing that you're gonna have is you're potentially gonna have little nail holes. So you can just take a little bit of filler, and I'm just using my finger for this because it is the teeniest, tiniest little hole. And I'm just gonna cover those over before I paint. What I am going to do is I'm going to be painting these two different colors. I'm gonna be painting the big one in DIY beadboard, and I'm going to be painting the small one in DIY apothecary. So I'm going to be painting them out, doing 2 coats of the color, each color, 2 coats of each color on the 2 different trays. That's kind of where my head was going on this one. And then I'll look at what we'll do the next step to make them a little bit more decorative. So you see that the painting is gonna go super quick for these because they really aren't very big. You're talking about a lot of flat surfaces. But what I will do for these, well, I'm debating. So I'm not convinced yet whether I will leave the little feet brown as a bit of a contrast for this, or whether I will paint them out. I'm thinking I'm gonna leave them brown and leave them as a little bit of a contrast. Since I've gone to the trouble of putting the feet on, I don't necessarily want them to disappear entirely. But I am going to do a little bit of distressing to then bring back a little bit of the tray color. So again, I have some of that distressing, some of that brown showing on the piece, and then I also have the brown in the feet showing through. Okay, now that I'm talking about it, that's what I've decided I'm gonna do. Sometimes it's always a work in progress. I have a general idea of what the heck I'm doing, and then I get started, and I'm kind of going, yeah, okay, that was a good idea, but let's do it this way instead. And a lot of times on these videos, y'all get to be part of that process. But again, that's part of, I guess, what I'm comfortable in showing you too, that I'm doing some of these things and I'm screwing up sometimes because sometimes I'm doing it for the first time with you. And, you know, there's been a number of videos where I've done it and I'm kind of going, oh, that didn't work. And then the brainwave hits me partway through and I switch how I'm doing it. But I share that with you. I mean, that's part of my learning process and part of yours as well. So, you know, if I only showed you one way and you're thinking, no, I think this way would work, you get to see, yeah, that was the way that didn't. Learn from me, go the other route, it'll be better. All right, so what I'm gonna do is finish painting these trays out. This one in DIY Apothecary, the large one in DIY Beadboard. And I'll get both coats on, although this one doesn't necessarily look like it needs two. I'm gonna give it two anyway because I am gonna be doing some distressing. But I'll come back with you guys for that stage. Now that we've got our coats of paint on, before we start doing anything else, I want to do two things. I want to sand this so that I have a nice smooth surface and do a little bit of distressing. And then I am going to want to seal just this front-facing piece. We'll seal the whole piece when it's done, but I want this section to be sealed. I'm going to be using Big Top by DIY, just so that when it's dry, I have a better surface to adhere my transfers to. So all that we're looking at doing is doing a light sanding, and I have a really fine, this is just a moldable pad, but it's very fine, just because I'm knocking off just the top little pieces of the paint to create a smooth surface. And it's kind of like, you know, if you looked at it under a magnifying glass, you'd see that there's little paint particles sticking up. All I'm doing is knocking those back so it creates a little bit of a smoother texture on this. And then I'll go back over it to do a little distressing. So all that we're looking at doing is smoothing this out and then taking advantage of some of the edges. That's good. And for that, I have a slightly rougher, and I'm saying slightly rougher, I mean this is a 320, so it's not particularly rough, but it's going to be enough for me to distress some of the edges, just kind of highlight it a little bit. Okay, these have been sanded and dusted off and lightly distressed. Now, the one thing that is great about DIY paint is that until it's sealed, you can reactivate it with water, which meant I had some paint that I'd gotten on some of the knobs on the bottom. It just washes off. So, super, super beautiful that way. All I'm looking to do, as much as I'm going to seal the whole tray, ultimately, I'm just not going to bother yet. I'm going to have to reseal once I apply my transfers anyway, and I'll just seal the whole thing at that point in time. What I am looking at doing, though, is getting some of my Big Top, so my top coat down on the sections where I am going to be applying my transfers. So your transfers will not adhere well to just dry paint. They need a little bit of a slicker surface. They will stick to top coats beautifully. They'll stick to metal, no problem. They'll stick to glass, no problem. So they need that slicker surface. You can, and I get asked this, can I get the transfers to adhere well to wax? Yes, but your wax has to have had a chance to have cured a bit first, meaning the wax can't still be sort of wet. Now, it might feel dry to the touch, but it has to have cured. And I would say, depending upon your climate, because if you're in a really damp climate, then it's going to be a little bit longer. But generally speaking, you're going to want it to have been maybe about 3 to 4 days. The longer, the better. And then you need to seal over the transfer again. So you could wax over your transfer if you've used wax, and that will help seal it in. But if you're doing the wax, know that you've got a longer wait time. I mean, I'm just going to be waiting until this top coat is dry before I come back for the next step. So it is a little bit faster when you're using like a polyacrylic to be able to seal your pieces. Sorry, just saw that I missed one little spot in the middle, and I can't remember what transfers I'm using on this one and whether they need to go there. I think it's just more corners. More corners on this one, and this one's all over. So super easy. That's all that we're doing. We're just waiting for those to dry fully. So I'm going to give them a couple of hours just so that I know that they're nice and dry, definitely not tacky. And then we'll come back and we'll do the next step to start prettying them up. See you then. For both these little projects, I am going to be using some IOD transfers. And for this, it's not going to take a lot to be able to just zhuzh these up a little bit. So I'm going to be using some pieces of transfers. For this one, I thought it would be cute because it's in that softened, kind of green color, to do a little bit of a couple of the entomology. I'm just looking around going, I need scissors. Okay, from the shipping table here. So there's the entomology, etc. So this whole transfer is just all bugs and some fish and some birds and some butterflies and moths and all kinds of different things. So there were these muted colored birds that I cut out. And the entomology transfer, it's one of those that you're just going to be able to use tons of it. I mean, sure, if you have a big dresser, you could put all of them up on it, but it works great just separating it out and having little bits and pieces here. So I thought these little birds kind of sitting here, I cut out a couple of butterflies to be able to check out. Can you see that? So they're in like a pale yellowy green, so be good on this background. So that's my plan there. And I have a couple of butterflies in the same tone that we may add in. But I'm gonna see once I get these on whether or not I need these or not. Over here, I wanted this to go more farmhouse. So for this, I was using the Farm Fresh signage, and it comes with 3 things saying sweet cream, wild honey, fresh eggs. And I cut it up so that I could do different signs. I don't think that they make that one anymore. So sometimes I have things that have been around a long time, and this is one of them. So sorry. Try to use things that you might be able to buy still. But certainly there's a whole host of different transfers that you can get. QueenBeeCreationsHome.com for any of them, and there's some beautiful new ones that have just come out. So those are all available on the website if you want to check them out. I'm just going to lay the fresh eggs one out. I didn't even mean to say that, but okay, I'm putting the fresh eggs one out. And there were some lines that went around it that I cut out, and I'll probably drop in a line, but I'm gonna get those in there first and then see how it goes. So that's the direction we're heading. As with all of the transfers, comes with a handy dandy little stick, so I just hang on to these forever. And they've got nice little lines on the backing on it so that you can help line it up. The backing helps prevent it from sticking where you don't want it to. And once you kind of lay it out, you're sort of committed. And then you are just going to rub the transfer in place. So you just kind of rub until it releases from the plastic backing that it's on, and it sticks to the surface that you have in mind. And you're able to kind of lift up and see what's sticking, what isn't sticking, where do you need to go harder. And you can kind of hear it do that releasing, and you'll actually see it go really pale, which gives you an idea of where it definitely was sticking nice and easy on there. So all I'm going to do is rub this on, and these two elements, see where we're at as to whether or not I need to add anything more. And I think that's it for this one. I don't think I need the butterflies. I think it would be overkill. This is just super cute, sweet, simplistic, and I think that's enough. So these are our two different trays that we've added some raised feet on, so it adds a little bit more interest. I'm gonna seal them with Big Top so that they're both sealed, and get them staged up for a couple of picks. But you can see how different the look can be using exactly the same technique, just switching up the color, switching up the transfer that you're using. This one very easily could be done with any of the IOD letter stamps. There are some farm animal stamps. You can do this very similarly using that. Or check out the JRV stencils as well, because there's a lot of signage there that's going to work for something like this. Whether you're doing it as a tray or as a sign, check out queenbeecreationshome.com for any of the painter supplies that we're using. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, and thanks for tuning in.